Let us solve the problem 4 in part C. The problem reads as follows. Write a shell script to accept many file names through command line. Do the following for each file name. If it is an ordinary file, display its content and also check whether it has execute permission. If it is a directory, display the number of files in it. And the last one is, if the file or a directory does not exist, display the message. So we are supposed to accept many file names through the command line. So if you look at your program, suppose this is not the one. Suppose if you have, let me clear the content over here. And suppose if you give the name for this file as exc4.sh, you can give file name 1, file name 2 and file name 3 and so on and so forth. So you can supply many number of files. So that is what they are saying. So you can supply more than one file name. For every file name, you have to check few things. First one, if the given file name is a ordinary file, then you have to display the content which is there inside that file. Whatever that is written inside that file, you are supposed to display it. Also, you need to check whether this file is executable or not. So you have to check the file attribute to see whether it is a executable file or not. Next one, if it is not an ordinary file, you have to check whether it is a directory. If it is a directory, what is the meaning of saying directory? If it is a folder in Windows, so if it is a directory, you need to count how many files are there within that directory. And if it is not a file nor a directory, then you need to give a message saying that it is not a file nor a directory. So suppose if you have a Linux operating system. Now I have some files over here, say for example bus.txt. If I double click on it, I can see the content. So I have to check whether this file is an ordinary file. If I right click on it and look at the property of this file, you will notice that that file is a plain file. So it's a ordinary file. Okay. So you can notice here it's a ordinary file, plain file. If it is a file, you have to check whether it has a executable permission. If it has executable permission, you have to display it. Suppose if it is a directory, you have to specify whether how many files are there inside that particular directory. So this is what you are supposed to do in your program. So let's try to solve the problem. I'm going to go to the Notepad++ here, and I'm going to set the language as shell. And then let's solve the problem. First of all, it is asked that accept many file names. So this is what they have asked accept many file names. I would like to show how many file names or arguments are given. So let's go ahead and let's complete the problem. So I'm going to echo and I'm going to say number of arguments supplied, and I'm going to give the number. You know very well Whenever you have the command line argument like this, if you have a number of command line arguments that are provided, okay, to get the count how many files are there, you can get it by using dollar number sign. This is going to give you the count. So this is the 1, 2 and 3. So it's going to give you, there are 3 arguments that are supplied. Okay, next one is, if you want to get the first file, you know that it will be the $1, this will be $0, the name of the file will be $0, you are familiar with that. These are called as positional parameter. This will be $2 and so on and so forth. Now if you want to get all the argument in one shot, if you want to get all of them, then you can use one other option, and that is $. So $* will give you all the arguments that are passed to the command line. Then what you can do is, you can take all the argument in one shot and take one at a time and do the processing. So what we do is, we take all of them, okay, because we don't know how many of them can be given. It can be 2, it can be 3, it can be 10, it can be 100. So we take all of them and we take one file name at a time, and then check whether it is an ordinary file. In that case, we will display the content. If it is a directory, we will display the count of files and so on and so forth. So how do I get all the files? To get all the file names, I can use $. This is going to give me all the file, and once I get all of them, I will iterate through every file name one after the other. For this, we are going to use the for loop. So I'm going to write a simple for loop. So I'm going to say for $file name. So for every file name in $. So what is the $? Will be all the files, not this one. $* will be all the file names, and I take one file name at a time. Okay, so one file name at a time. So one file name from all the set of files. So you take one file. So I'll complete the loop here. So what I do is, I take the first file, that is the file name 1. So if you have 3 files here, file 1, file 2, file 3, suppose you are given 3 file names over here, file 1, file 2 and file 3. If you are given 3 file names, then what we'll do is, when the for loop iterates for the first time, you are given file name 1. So the file name 1 will be there. You can do anything with that file. When the for loop comes back, second file name will be supplied, and so on and so forth. So you get one file at a time. So I take one file name, and I'm going to say whether it is a ordinary file. I'll use the square bracket. I will say that whether it is a ordinary file, you know very well. -f is going to tell me whether it is a ordinary file or not. So if the file name is a ordinary file name, then I am going to echo and say that $f name is a ordinary file. Okay, and what is that we are supposed to do is, we are supposed to, if it is an ordinary file, we are supposed to display its content. So then I'm going to display its content. I'm going to say the contents of $f name, and I'm going to display it. How do you get the content of a file? Suppose if you have a file here, so let me remove this one. Suppose if I have a file here called cars, if I use cat cars.txt, I'm going to get the content which is there inside this file. So whatever that is there inside the file, so if you are using a Unix, if you double click on anything, you get the content of the file. Same thing in command prompt. If you want to do it, you say cat is the command. followed by the file name. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say cat and the file name. So I'm going to get the content of the file. What's the next thing that they have asked is also check whether it is an executable file or not. So when will you get a file is executable or not? Now I'm going to clear the content. If I ls this, I have this cars ex, three files are there. If I use just ls, I'll get the file name. If I use ls minus l, you will notice that it's going to give me the permission. See, first one says, the dash says it's an ordinary file. Next three letter, it's going to say whether the file is read, write, executable for the owner, read, write, executable for the group, read, write, executable for others. Now you notice that this particular file is not executable file. Okay, so what is the option there? Read is R, write is W, X is executable. So I can check whether a given file is executable or not by using the X option in the if statement. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say if minus X, that means executable. If it is a file name, if this is the executable file, then I'm going to say echo dollar file name is an executable file, else I'm going to say, I will not type it again, so else I can say it is not an executable file. Okay, and let me close that if statement. So that closes the first part, that is the if statement. That closes the first part. So this completes the part A of the question. Next one, if it is not an ordinary file, I have to check whether it is a directory. So else if I have to check for the directory, and you know very well, to check for the directory you use a -d dollar file name. So that is a f name, not the file name. Okay, if it is a directory, then what we are supposed to do, let's echo and say that dollar f name is a directory. Okay, and what is that we are supposed to do? Let's go to the question. We are supposed to count the number of files which are there inside that particular file. Okay, that's what we are supposed to do it. Now, let's go here and let's look at the thing. Now, if I ls, let me clear this content. If I ls minus l, you will see that it's going to give you a long listing. Now, in this long listing, you will notice that the first thing over here, if it is a dash, it is an ordinary file. Now, what if I create a directory? How do I create a directory? mkdir, and I'm going to create a directory called as a sample. So, what is this I have done? In your Windows world, I have right clicked and said create a new folder, and I said sample. So this is what I have done. I created a folder called as sample. Okay, so the same thing I have done it here, mkdir sample. I created a folder here. Now if I say ls, you will notice that sample is coming in a different color, indicating that it is a folder. Now let me clear and let me show you again. ls minus l, if I long list the content, you will notice that if it is a folder, it's going to show -d. Okay, I mean not minus, it's going to give you d. So if it is an ordinary file like ex anything, any exercise, car.txt or anything, it's going to show the option as dash. So if you find the starting letter is a dash, then it is an ordinary file. If it is D, it is a directory. If it is a C, it could be something else. Now, if you go to the Unix system over here, and in the Unix system, let me zoom in for you. In the Unix system, if you go to the Unix file system, you've already seen the Unix file system. There is a place called as dev. There is a folder called as dev. If you look at the files inside this dev, there are many files are there. Now, for example, CD-ROM is there. Now, if you look at this particular file, if you look at the property of this file, that file is not an ordinary file. It just say it is a block device. It's not a ordinary file. Rather, it is a device that is being represented. In the same way, if you look at this one, if you look at a folder, it will show it as a folder itself. Okay, so that is not a big problem here. But even though it looks like a file here, they are not actually a file. So it may look like a folder, but it is not a file as such. It is a device that is being represented. For example, it says it is a character device. So let's try and I'm going to just show that thing. Let me go to this Unix and let me show you. Okay, so this folder where I was there is that /dev. So this folder where I'm trying to show you is this is dev. Let me zoom in for you, and you will notice that it is dev/dev. Dev stands for devices. So let's go here and let me try to display the content. Let me go to my Unix shell over here. Now I am in, let me pwd here, and I am in the my home directory money and demo. I am here, but I am supposed to show the content of dev. How do I do that thing? I'm going to say ls followed by /dev. So I am giving the folder which is not the current. Remember, if I don't say anything, ls will simply display the current directory, your present directory, whatever that is there inside the demo folder, it's going to show the content. But now I am asking, don't show the content of the demo, but show the content of a dev folder. So it's going to list so many of these files. Okay, so there are many files are there, because how did I do that? It is ls followed by the folder name, the other folder name which you want to display it. You're going to get it. Now let me clear it. I will use ls -l/dev. In this case, you will notice that it's going to give me the list of many files. What is important over here is the starting letter. What is important to us is the starting letter. You will notice that starting letters are all C. C indicates it is a character device. Character device could be a printer, could be a terminal, or could be a keyboard, and so on and so forth. Okay, which can take one character at a time. If you slightly go up over here, you may not see all the content. You may see L here. You will see L here. L is a link. Link is nothing but a shortcut. So it is a shortcut. For example, stderr is a shortcut to this location. Okay. Also, you will notice that ft is a shortcut to this location. You will also find, you may also find d here. Instead of this, you may find a d here, which is a directory, or a b here, which is a block directory. If you find a b instead of d, say block device. Character device is one character at a time. Block device can take more than one character at a time. What is so important over here in this listing is one particular file that you may think of using, and this is the null device. Now, null, you know very well in your programming language, null means it is nothing. So suppose you don't want a output, something, you produce an output, and you don't want to store that output, or you just want to destroy that output. You don't want them to be shown on the screen, or you don't want to save them onto a file, or you just don't want the output to come. In that case, redirect that output to this null device. So it is like a sink. You just put it onto the sink, it just vanishes from the system. So this is one particular file. Now what is important for us is this one. When we list using ls minus l option, if you find that first letter is D, it is a directory. If the first letter is L, it is a link, that is a shortcut in your Windows. If it is a C, it is a character. If it is B, it is not displayed here, but if it is a B, it is a block device. So they are all not ordinary files. But if you display a file, and if you find that the first letter is dash, okay, then it is a ordinary file. So what we are supposed to do now is, let me clear the content. You have to use ls minus l, and you have to consider only those files or only those lines which has the starting letter dash, because if it is starting with the dash, then it is a ordinary file. So that's simple as that. If it is a D, it is not an ordinary file. If it is a B, it is not ordinary file. If it is a C, it is not ordinary. If it is a L, it is not an ordinary file. So what we have to do is we have to filter. What we have to filter? We have to filter on those lines which start with the dash. So that is what we are supposed to do it. How do I do that? For this, I'm going to go here and I'm going to say ls minus l. Remember, if I just say ls minus l, it's going to list the content. If I say ls minus l, it will list the content of this folder. I don't want this folder, I want a specific folder. Okay, in that case, what I'm supposed to do, give the name of the folder. So I will give the name of the folder. What is the name of the folder? File name. Okay, so this is what you are getting it from the for loop. Okay, then what I'm going to do is I will use the grep. Hope you are familiar with that grep. So in the grep, what I'm going to do is it must start with the, so filter all those lines that start with the dash. Okay, so you get, so in that case, what you are going to get, let me go here and let me do that thing. So I will do ls minus l on the current folder. Let's clear the clutter here. ls minus l. Okay, if you do this, you are going to get it. Now what I'm going to say, ls minus l, I am not going to give you the folder name, just for simplicity. Then what I'm going to say, grep, and it must start with this. If I do it, what you are going to get, you notice the difference here. In the first case, you have 4 lines. In the second case, you have 2 lines here. Let's look at here 4 lines are there. So dash 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 and D was there. When I filter it, I get only 3 lines here. So that is the advantage of using grep. So using grep, what did I do? I have filtered out the lines which are not starting. In this case, only 1 line was there. The lines which are not starting with the dash. So I have filtered out. Now what is the next thing that I am supposed to do? I am supposed to remember, 1 line indicates 1 file. Okay, 1 line indicates 1 file. So for example, this is car.txt. Next line is ex3, ex4, and so on. So I have to count how many lines are there. If I count how many lines are there, those many files will be there. There are 3 files are there, so 3 lines are there. How do I count the 3 lines? So I'm going to pipe this, and you know, so WC is used for word count, and I'm going to say count the number of lines by using -el. So what is that I'm going to get? I'm going to get the 3. What is this 3? There are 3 lines are there. In other words, 3 lines means 3 files are there. So this is what I'm going to get. I'll get 3 lines over here for this one, and that is what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to pipe it, and I'm going to say WC minus L. Now I'm going to store this in a in a variable. So number of files nf. Okay, I need to execute this. In order to execute, I have to use the back quote. You know very well, use the back quote and use the back quote to execute that particular command. So then I'm going to echo it, and I'm going to say number of files in the folder $fname, and I'm going to use nf. So I'm going to show the nf whichever I calculated. I'm going to show that thing. So that will complete the second part. Last thing I'm supposed to do is if it is not an ordinary file nor a directory, I need to show a error message. So I'm going to say else. I'm going to echo and say that $fname is not an ordinary file nor is a directory. Okay, then I'm going to close this if statement. Okay, and I have this for loop which was there before. So this is your program. Let's try to execute this particular program. I'm going to go and let me go here, copy this file, Control C. Let me go and clear the clutter here. I'm going to say nano exc4.sh. okay, it is already there. I think this is my previous okay, let me delete that file for you so that where am I going to do it? Okay, let me remove that file. It is already there, exc4.sh. let me create it. So nano exc4.sh. I'll paste this one, and I'm going to say Control O to write it, Control X to exit it. So let me display it. I'm going to say sh exc4.sh. If I don't supply any, I'm supposed to supply the file names here, but if I don't supply the file name, what's going to happen? It's going to say that there is a syntax error. Okay, let's say in the 2, let me clear that part. Number of arguments supplied is 0, and there is something wrong in the line number 2. What is that? Line number 2 says do and done. Did I? I done something wrong. I think I have not done anything wrong there, but did I close all the if? Let's see. When I talk and do it, I may forget to close. Let's see. It just says something terribly long. Syntax error, bad loop for the loop variable. Loop variable, where is loop variable? Dollar. Oh, sorry. I am not supposed to use dollar here. Sorry about that. Let me not save it here. It is just a file name, not the dollar. So let me copy this again one more time, and let me clear and I'm going to remove that ex4 there first, and let me start with the thing, control O and control X. Okay, so let me run it. Okay, so number of arguments supplied is 0 because I have not supplied anything. Now I'm going to say cars.txt. Remember, this file is there, cars.txt, and I must get the output of the car if everything goes proper. So I press enter, and what you see, number of arguments supplied is 1 argument is supplied. Cars is a ordinary file. Content of this car is Tata, you are already familiar, Tata and so on and so forth. So this is the thing. Car is not a executable file. So is it true? So let me clear the content and let me show the content of the cars. So cat cars.txt, this is the content of the car. If I say ls minus l cars.txt, you notice that it is not an executable, it's an ordinary file, and no doubt it is not an executable file. How can I make it executable? I'm going to use some mod, and I'm going to say plus x to the user, and the name of the file is cars.txt. Okay, now if I say ls minus l, you notice that the file is executable. Remember, it was not executable, I made it executable, so this file is executable now. You notice that this is executable now. If I use the same command now, so my file name cars.txt, it must say this time that it is an executable file. So you notice that cars is a executable file. Why it is executable file? Because I made it executable, as simple as that. Okay, also you will notice, let me clear it. Also you will notice if I ls here, it's going to show in a different color saying that this is an executable file. Now I have a folder here called as sample. So how you have a folder, let me log in to the Linux. How you have a folder, let me go to the BSA. So you have a folder called as sample. Same thing, I have a folder called sample here. So if I ls minus l, you notice that this sample is a directory. It's a directory. So I'm going to use the command, and I'm going to say sample. What I'm going to get? I'm going to get a number of arguments supplied is 1. Sample is a directory. Okay, and number of files inside that sample is 0. So let me say ls sample, how many files are there inside sample? You notice that nothing is there. Okay, so let me copy, let me clear the cutter again. I'll ls here, I'm going to copy this cars and the cars into this sample. So how do I do that? Cp cars.txt into sample. I have to make it as a folder, so I have copied. Now if I use ls, you will notice that I have copied a cars into it. So what did I do in terms of your this thing? So I take one file, control C it, go to sample, and I paste it. This is what you do. Okay, paste the content into the other folder. So that is what I have done here. I have copied one file cars.txt into sample. So if you say, so inside sample there is one file called as cars, one file is there. Now if I run my script here, so ex for.s and supply the argument as sample, what I'm going to get? So I will get that number of supplied argument is 1. Directory is sample. It contains one folder, one file. That folder contains one file. Okay, I will change this word as directory, please make a change to this word, because we don't use the name folder here, we use the word directory. Okay, so just make that small thing, even though they mean same, but in the Unix analogy we use a directory, so keep that thing in mind. So we make it as directory. I will not make the changes in the code, but here in the demonstration, but when you are typing it, make it as a directory. So let me go back. So this part is done. Let me supply two things. I'm going to supply files, and I am going to say cars.txt. So I am supplying two arguments. First argument is sample, second argument is cars. So how am I going to get the output now? I'm going to say number of arguments supplied is 2. Okay, first argument is a directory, sample is a directory, and it contains one file, so you are already familiar. Next I have supplied is cars. Cars is a ordinary file. Content of the cars you are already familiar. These were the content of the file. Okay, and cars is an executable file. Now I have already told you, clear, I have already told you ls minus l, there is a folder called as a div, and there is a file called as null. So what is null? Null is not a directory. Remember, it is inside the dev. So if you go to the dev here, there will be null. I don't know whether you have the null here. Okay, in this case that null is not there. It may be there. Anyhow, I assume that it is there. I will not waste my time in searching for that. Okay, this is a null device. Okay, so it is a device. It is a C here. So I'm going to do now is ex this one txt, I will say, and the third last one I'm going to give is dev slash null. Remember, null is not a directory nor a ordinary file. It must say that three arguments are supplied. First one is sample, next one is car, last one is null. So let's see how it's going to come now. So number of arguments supplied is 3. First one was sample, and you know that. Number of this one I told you, make it as directory. Number of files in that directory is 1. Second one is cars, which is ordinary file, and the content is there. Third one, and car is executable file. Third one is not a ordinary file, nor it is a directory, and that is what is asked in the program. That's all in this program. Kindly make one correction over here, and that is this word has to be changed as directory, not the one other thing. And one small mistake, when I typed it, I typed right at the beginning, I typed $. Here it must be just a ordinary file name. That's a variable name, not the $. Okay, that's all in this particular program. Thank you for your interest. We will meet again in the next class.